So heartbreak literally hurts, but actually your pain makes perfect psychological sense, and you can heal. So if Valentine's Day feels unbearable, I'm hoping this will help you understand why. I mean, Valentine's Day can be beautiful for some people and deeply painful for others. And if you're struggling because of heartbreak or rejection or the end of a relationship, there's something very important that I want to say, and it's not because you are weak, you are not dramatic, you are not failing to move on. What you are feeling and experiencing is rooted in biology. And today I want to explain the psychology of romantic rejection, why it hurts so much, and most importantly, what you can do to heal in a healthy way. Um, so let's begin with why romantic rejection hurts so much, and let's start with the science because brain imaging studies show that romantic rejection activates many of the same brain regions involved in physical pain, particularly the anterior cingulate cortex and the insula. In other words, heartbreak isn't just emotional. The brain processes it similarly to physical injury. From an evolutionary perspective, this makes sense. Human beings are wired for attachment, and losing an attachment figure or being rejected by one activates a distress system, that's designed to pull us back towards connection. Attachment theory explains this well. When we bond with someone romantically, they become part of our emotional regulation system. They are a source of safety and reassurance and stability. And when that bond is disrupted, your nervous system registers threat. And that's why heartbreak can sometimes lead to, panic and obsession and sleeplessness and loss of appetite and, emotional waves, and even a physical ache in the chest. It's attachment distress in action. And another important piece of psychology of rejection is rumination. So after heartbreak, the mind tries to solve what happened. Why wasn't I enough, or did I do something wrong? Were they happier without me? Will I always be alone? And the problem is that rumination doesn't resolve the pain, it actually amplifies it. Research shows that repetitive negative thinking maintains and worsens depressive symptoms. The more we replay rejection, the deeper the neural groove becomes. And Valentine's Day can intensify this because, social comparison increases. We see, curated images of romance. We see others experiencing idealized times together, and it's depicted certain ways in media. And all of that can activate feelings of inadequacy or shame. But here's what's crucial: rejection does not equal inadequacy. Excuse me. It equals incompatibility. And that's a very different psychological story. So let me offer you three clinically grounded tools that can genuinely help. Firstly, cognitive diffusion. You are not your thoughts. When heartbreak happens, the mind produces painful narratives. I'm unlovable. I'll never find someone again. I've lost my chance. And cognitive diffusion from the field of acceptance and commitment therapy teaches us to step back from thoughts rather than merge with them. So instead of saying, um, I'm unlovable, try, I'm noticing the thought that I'm unlovable. And that small shift reduces fusion. It reminds you that thoughts are mental events, they're not facts. You don't have to argue with them either. You don't have to edit them. You just don't have to believe them automatically. So practice observing thoughts like passing weather rather than permanent truths. So, psychologically adopt the position of the sky and notice your own thoughts and feelings like passing clouds. I'm noticing the thought happening rather than being immersed in the thought. Um, Secondly, there is emotional exposure and processing where you feel it to heal it. And many people try to suppress heartbreak or numb it or avoid it. But emotional suppression actually tends to increase physiological strength and physiological stress. You're holding on to it perversely, allowing yourself some structured emotional processing through things like journaling, talking openly, sitting with the feeling without distraction. That all sort of helps the nervous system to metabolize the experience. And as counterintuitive as this may sound, accepting and allowing those feelings to be there will help the healing. So, you can ask yourself, where do I feel this in my body? What emotion is underneath the anger? If this sadness had a voice, what would it say? And when you allow the wave to rise and fall without fighting it, you teach your nervous system that the pain is survivable, which it is. So thirdly, meaning making and post-traumatic growth. This is where healing becomes transformative. And research on post-traumatic growth shows that adversity can actually deepen self-understanding, as well as resilience and clarity about values. Um, not immediately, not easily, but potentially, And you might ask, why did this, or rather, what did this relationship teach me about my needs? Where did I abandon myself? What patterns do I want to change? What kind of love do I want to build next time? And heartbreak often reveals attachment patterns. It can expose anxious tendencies, avoidance, fear of abandonment. And that awareness is powerful. It turns pain into insight. And that brings me on to the topic of shame, about rejection. Shame is one of the most damaging emotions in heartbreak. The internal narrative becomes, I was rejected, therefore I'm defective. Sometimes people think there's something wrong with them as a result. But psychologically, rejection, it's part of human pair bonding dynamics. Not every attachment is meant to be permanent. Romantic capability involves a timing, emotional readiness, attachment style, shared values, growth direction. If someone steps away, it doesn't automatically mean you are less worthy. It means that dynamic did not stabilize. And that distinction matters enormously for mental health. Reducing shame is going to allow a healthier recovery, greater emotional regulation, less desperation in future relationships, and hopefully, stronger boundaries. So finally, for this sort of brief video, let's adopt a different perspective about Valentine's Day. So, if Valentine's Day feels heavy this year, consider reframing it. Instead of a reminder of loss, let it become a day of reflection or a day of self-compassion, a day of attachment awareness, a day of recommitting to secure love, including the relationship that you have with yourself. Secure love is not dramatic, it's not chaotic, it's not built on anxiety, it's built on emotional safety. And heartbreak, painful as it is, can actually move you closer to that if you use it wisely. If you're hurting right now, please know, your nervous system is reacting exactly as it was designed to. Your pain makes psychological sense and it will soften. Healing from romantic rejection, it's not about forgetting someone. It's about integrating the experience without letting it define your worth. Be kind to yourself, be patient with yourself, observe your thoughts rather than believing them. Allow the feelings to move through you and look for the meaning that will strengthen you. You're not broken, you are healing. And if you found this helpful, feel free to share it with someone who might need it this Valentine's Day. And remember, secure love begins with understanding how the mind works. That's it. Goodbye for now.